So since Overwatch 2 came out maybe 5 days ago, October 4th, I plan on making a tier list video just to go over all the characters in general, how they stack up in my opinion, and then how they stack up for the potential meta that can happen in the future. It is a little bit too early to predict anything when it comes to the meta, but this is just something I wanted to do for fun. Tier lists are fun, this involves gaming, and I love Overwatch. So I'm not going to be too in-depth with all of them just because I do have to go over 35 characters. I'm going to give a general synapse of each character and why they're good or bad, and then from there we'll see how they stack up. And please definitely let me know in the comments below if you agree, disagree, or think that Overwatch 2 is okay, good, great, awesome, and that the servers kept crashing. We'll start with Brig. Brig got a bunch of buffs. I really want to put her in Super Saiyan, but for now I'm going to put her in Great. Her Shield Bash now activates her Inspire, which means that anything that she does, her Flail, her Whip, as well as Shield Bash, will now have Inspire go up, which means she can do mass healing. Everything else for her is pretty much the same, except that Shield Bash can now go forward a couple more meters, so now she just gets projected furthermore. One of the biggest debuffs for Brig is the fact that now her Shield Bash doesn't do any more stuns. In fact, I think stuns are pretty much gone for the most part, except for Doomfist knocking people into a wall. Lucio, Super Saiyan tier. Everything about Lucio in terms of his versatility, in terms of the fact that he can heal, the fact that he can get people out of situations based on his speed boost, his ult creating overshield, all that stuff is awesome. He is one of the highest outputting overall crowd control healers when it comes to anything. So I think Lucio is Super Saiyan tier, awesome character. Decent damage. I don't think that they need to necessarily buff any of his damage. They could have, he would have been even better. Great character overall. Sombra I'll put as great. Probably in terms of DPS, she can get in and out of situations probably the best in terms of both range and speed. Other characters can as well, and I'll get into those as well. Her hacking is great. The fact that she can do high damage output based on how fast her submachine gun actually goes is awesome. So overall, Sombra is great. Kiriko, obviously Super Saiyan tier. Kiriko is the definitive support at this point. The fact that she can get in and out of situations much faster than anyone else. She can teleport right to a person as long as they're locked on and you're actually locked onto that character. Her healing output is very, very high. Her kunai does about 30 per hit, so that's actually pretty high output. Her ult allows everything, speed, reloading, and I think potentially DPS to actually increase based on the fact that you're in that little area. So overall, she's arguably right now, again, the meta might change, but she might be the best healer right now based on all those things. Baptiste I will put as great. I do want to put Baptiste as Super Saiyan, but the only thing limiting him in is that the fact that he's not at the same tier as Lucio and Kiriko in terms of versatility and overall output. He did get a huge buff when it came to his healing matrix. The fact that when he does actually unleash it, instead of it healing over a certain amount of time, now it does a flat out 50 healing right off the spot and then periodically heals off. He also did get a slight increase to his bullet damage. I believe it went from 24 per hit to now 25, and over time you keep using those, he's going to do a lot of damage. Versatility wise, he can jump very high and get out of certain situations, but he can't teleport the same way as Sombra or Kiriko or as fast as Lucio, so that's why I only put him as great. Ashe I'm going to put as good. There isn't too much that Ashe can do necessarily that has changed. Her rocket propeller that she can do from her hand cannon is pretty good. The fact that she can potentially knock someone back as well as knock herself up or away in certain situations is pretty good, and then you can unload the rifle. Yes, the rifle is potentially used as a sniper. I don't think she's amazing, I just think she's good overall. Bob is very useful because you can now have a 6th technically, and in Overwatch 1 you could technically have a 7th combatant on your team. So overall I think Ashe is good. Tracer I will put as great. So in terms of versatility, she can get in and out of situations really well. Her recall can actually be used amazingly in the fact that, let's just say D.Va's bomb is about to go off. If you time your recall correctly, you will avoid D.Va's bomb. So that is something that is very amazing. Any character that can do that brief period of time, if you time it correctly, is really good. Compared to someone like Reaper, who you can hold the button for like 5 seconds, he's, vanishing for 5 seconds. Tracer, there's only maybe a 2.5 split second that you can use recall. So timing it perfectly in order to make sure that you don't get hit by these major things is awesome. She can recall health, she can do high damage output, she's very hard to hit at certain times, so that makes her very versatile, and overall I think she is a great character. Speaking of which, Reaper is right over here. Reaper is also great for the same reasons. Very high damage output. His Wraith form is probably one of the best in terms of longevity when it comes to being invulnerable. The fact that he can teleport from place to place does make him very versatile. Reaper overall is a very good character. I love his Death Blossom. One of the first videos I ever made on a different channel was, I think, like 4 times Overwatch kill Reaper Deathblow, and Reaper is one of my favorite characters. Gabriel Reyes has a very interesting story, so overall I think he is a great character. Sigma, our first tank from what I can see, is actually on Super Saiyan tier. Sigma's barrier and just the way he's been able to actually play in Overwatch 2 compared to Overwatch 1 has been significantly different. The fact that you can use Accretion, which does a lot of damage, and then follow it up with potentially 2 of his orbs can actually one-shot a person based on the damage. I believe Accretion now does 100, and then each of the orbs potentially does 50. So if you're versing someone like Tracer, who's a 200 character, he can pretty much one-shot them, granted the actual attacks hit. The fact that he can absorb lots of bullets when it comes to opponents is very good. His ult is always good. One of the best things that you can use with Sigma is the fact that when you're moving the payload, if it's overtime, if you time it perfectly enough, where all the opponent's teams are on the payload and you use his ult, it'll actually keep them in the air for long enough. The overtime clock will go down and you'll win the match. I've used this multiple times. Opponents have used it on me multiple times. It is very versatile. His shield with 700 does really, really good. I believe it regenerates faster than Overwatch 1, at least from what I've noticed. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe it just looks like it's going faster because the numbers look like they're moving faster. But overall, he's probably one of the best tanks. I believe he's the second best tank, and eventually we will go to the first best tank. And again, in the order where it shows like all these characters, they're not in a particular order on top of each other. They're all in the same sphere. Hammond, I'm gonna put as good. So Hammond overall, you know, can create overshield just being based around certain people, like a certain amount. I don't think in Overwatch 2 he's as good as Overwatch 1, just because of, like, I guess some of the newer maps, using his spin ability, just going over and over and over and trying to knock people off, doesn't really do that good when you're trying to push the robot. So overall, he's pretty good, but he just seems like a giant feeding tank at this point, just taking damage. So he'd be pretty well equipped against with someone like Zarya, where he can actually be used to her advantage. But other than that, I just think he's okay. He's not a bad tank in any means. I just think he's good. Zenyatta, I wanted to put as Super Saiyan, but I am going to put as great. He has very high healing. His Discord Orb's probably one of the best abilities in the game. It really, really helps A, lock onto a person, and B, weaken that person. So that's probably one of the greatest things you're going to be able to use. His Transcendence is one of the best ults in the game because it can take very, very high healing output, especially when you're taking a lot of damage. For example, if Reaper is using his Death Blossom and then you pop Zen's ult, he probably won't be able to do any damage just based on the fact that Zen's been able to heal output that entire time. Now, if you're having someone against like D.Va, that damage is just flat out being given. So if it's in a certain range, D.Va just does 400 flat damage to you, or 600, or even 800. So no amount of healing is going to be able to guard you from something like that. But overall, he does very high damage output. The one drawback with Zenyatta is that he doesn't have as good versatility as others. Brig has, I guess in this case, even better versatility than Zenyatta because she can at least shield bash out of there. Bap has much better. Kiriko and Lucio have probably the best versatility. So in the way this is actually looking, you know, if I want to move like Bap over here instead of Brigitte over here, that's completely fine. But Zen, very, very good healer. Mei, I'm going to put as bad as our first. I don't think she has many uses. I think that one of the worst things that happened is now when she's using her ice cannon, or ice blaster in this case, she doesn't freeze anyone anymore, and it's just overall they just get slowed. So that freeze was very, very useful. If she still had her freeze, she'd probably be great here, but the fact she doesn't have that anymore, she is bad. So she can create a wall. I believe the wall's HP also decreased, so she just got a lot of debuffs. So overall right now, just based on what I'm seeing, she is pretty bad. Can she do high damage output? Yes, but the fact that she can't freeze someone anymore is really disappointing. Rein, I will put as great. I won't put him as Super Saiyan because I don't believe that he is one of the better tanks compared to the other one that I'm going to put in Super Saiyan. So Rein's shield went from 1600 to 1200, so that is a bit of a major debuff. He does have 2 fire flares now. I believe each one does slightly less damage, but it's the fact that you now have 2 of them, so that's pretty good. But unfortunately, getting shield from 1600 to 1200 is a bit of a downer. I believe it also regenerates slower, so he got debuffed significantly. The one benefit though is when he is doing his bash and he's rushing, there is now increased control of that. So if you were trying to go around a tight angle using him when you were bashing, it does much better when it comes to that. So that was a very significant buff. I kind of want to put him as good, but just because of all the other extra benefits that he has been given, I will put him as great. Road I will put as good. Road got, I believe, around a 100 or 150 extra health, but he doesn't have any armor, so that is pretty unfortunate when it comes to him. Otherwise, I think Road is a good, versatile character. Yes, he can heal himself, and that's probably one of the biggest things that he has to him, and he gets reduced damage for that time period. But overall, I don't see him as good as the other tanks. You know, if you want someone to do damage, you might as well just pick a DPS. I think he's okay. I would put him definitely better than Hamad. I know I said I wouldn't change the order of these guys, but I'm doing it just a little bit. But I think he's an okay tank. Genji, Super Saiyan tier. Now, I don't need to explain why Genji is Super Saiyan tier, but I'll use it a little bit. It's going to be very hard to negate his Dragon Blade. Now, there is someone like Sigma who, if you time your accretion right, can stun him for a brief period of time. But there's really no one that can counter that. The fact that DPS now got a 30% increase in speed, and the fact that he can bounce off people like Lucio and Kiriko really well, and the fact that he could probably get nanoed by Ana, it still proves that Genji's probably one of the best characters in the game. You know, he's probably one of the best DPS in the game, or might be the best DPS in the game. You know, the fact that you can keep rushing like that, then unleash his sword, and then based on every kill, the sword regenerates, it's just going to be a lot of damage done for Genji. So, really good character. Benefits a lot from the fact that not really many people can stun him. So overall, Genji's Super Saiyan tier. Hanzo, I will put as good. So I believe that they nerfed his storm arrows, so now they do a little bit less damage, unfortunately. Hanzo is very versatile. He can climb up walls. He can do his aerial jump while in air. That is definitely a benefit. I'm glad they added that in Overwatch 1 because Genji technically had 2 jumps, and this is his way of having actual quote-unquote 2 jumps. So for him, pretty good character, very versatile. Ult can technically easily be evaded, unlike Genji where he just rushes right into you. So overall, I think he is a good character. I wouldn't put him as great. I wouldn't put him as meh. I would put him as good. Winston, in my opinion, if we're going to order this a little bit better, is by far the best tank overall. So the best dive tank, 100%. He gets in there, he can get out of there easily. The fact that he can do damage based on his jump, the fact that he can put his barrier whenever he wants. The barrier, I believe it has the same cooldown time as it used to. It still has 700 health. So it is a very good, you know, overall tank. The fact that you can actually use a barrier. I believe that Sigma, Winston, and Reinhardt are the only ones who use a barrier now. Orisa's barrier is gone, so that's really unfortunate. I believe Symmetra can still use her ult as a quote-unquote barrier, but other than that, only those 3 can actually limit a barrier in and out of situations. So the fact that he's a barrier is very good. He can get in and out of situations. The fact that they gave him a long-range Tesla cannon to actually benefit him is really good. So now if you get out of a situation and you don't have your barrier right now and you still can't jump, you could technically attack from far away by charging up your Tesla and then firing it. So the fact that they even gave him long range capabilities for a tank is really good for someone like Winston. So that just makes him well above the other tanks in my opinion. Soldier is a definite great character. He can heal himself, he can do hit scan, he does high damage per second, he's fast. I believe they did debuff his speed a little bit, but given the fact that he does get 30% extra speed based on all the DPS, is very good. Doom, I'll put as good. Now, for me personally, I can't seem to figure out how to play as Doom. At least in Overwatch 1, I could semi-play as Doom. Now, his guard ability is good. I believe it just decreases damage by a certain percentage, and then it could charge up your gauntlet, so the next time you do a rocket punch, it does much more damage. I just don't feel the same about Doom anymore. I don't know why they decided to make him a tank. I guess because he kind of was a tanky character overall, but I don't think that Doom's the greatest as a tank. I think he would have been fine as a DPS, so I don't necessarily know what they've been going for. But overall, he's okay. I wouldn't put him anywhere near great, but we'll see how the meta changes. Ana is definitely great. So there are a lot of greats overall. There's a lot of goods, there's a lot of Super Saiyans, and there's only going to be a few bads, at least from what I'm seeing. But Ana's very good. She probably has one of the best ults in the game. The fact that if you give it to someone like Genji, you know, it's game over, you win. Not many people can stop her healing grenade / damage grenade unless you're actually running a tank that is like Winston, Rhine, or Sigma. A lot of people can't avoid that now. Very versatile. She can be played from afar or close. Ideally, you'd be playing from afar. She does pretty high healing output, not as high as the other heroes, but overall she is very good. Her versatility is probably one thing holding her back. Her and Zen do struggle with this, so that's why they can't be in Super Saiyan tier, but overall Ana is very, very good. Zarya I will also put as great. I think that Zarya now having 2 bubbles is good. I believe the cooldown on the bubbles is slightly less, given the fact that you now have 2 of them. I believe that overall her energy over time decreases faster than it was, so that is a bit of a debuff. She can create a barrier for herself and another person at the same exact time, so that can be played really, really well. Now, one of the greatest combos that you could potentially do, which is going to be very hard, is if you have an opponent about to be hit by like Diva's bomb, you put Zarya, give Zarya's bubble to Kiriko, Kiriko teleports to that other person, and then Kiriko puts down like a invisibility field or invulnerability field. She'll still get that extra bubble damage for Zarya, and the fact that Kiriko saved that other person that can heal them at the same time and then get out of the situation by potentially going back to Zarya is going to be a killer play. So Zarya overall I think is a very good character. I would not put her as Super Saiyan because she did get some debuffs, but other than that she is good. Pharah I'll put as good. Very basic character. I don't think there's much to her. She didn't really get any buffs or debuffs in my opinion. I believe they altered her jump a little bit, as well as the fact that she can blast people for certain damage a little bit. But other than that, I wouldn't put her as any better than that. She's always been annoying, so having someone like Soldier or Ana to actually take her out from the air is always good. But overall, she's just a good character. Sim, I want to put as good, but she's on... Actually, no, I'll put her as meh. I don't think she's that good. The fact that her teleporter is now timed is a major debuff, because that was one of the biggest things that can get people in and out. Versatility wise, that helped her significantly as a DPS. So I think that's one of the biggest debuffs. Overall, her turrets can still be annoying. It can be useful if it is on your team, but overall I think she's okay. McCree is now bad. So McCree used to be decent. I believe that his speed overall for, it was either fan the hammer or reloading, or I think just shooting in general, has increased a little bit. But it's the fact that he can't stun anymore. It's gone. It's completely gone. Now whenever he shoots his grenade, it attaches to the person and then damages them for a little bit. The fact, if he had stuns, I'd probably put as good. But right now he's bad, because he doesn't even have that anymore. So his versatility went right out the window, so unfortunately he is bad. Widow is just overall meh. She just attacks from afar. That's about it. I can't really say much else about Widow. She does have a little bit of versatility when it comes to her grappling hook, so that technically helps. But other than that, I think she's just good. Junk, I will put as good. I think that he's okay. Not really much to him. You know, Riptire is probably one of the best things. I believe that his trap is maybe a little bit bigger, so it can technically have a bigger surface area, but other than that, not too much of Junkrat. He's just good. Orisa, I wanted to put as great if she had her barrier, but the fact she doesn't, I'm going to put her as good now. So she is pretty useful in the fact that she can slightly slow someone down with the Javelin. The fact that her ult does damage within a certain time period is pretty good, but overall, I don't think that she got buffed in any ways, so I'll just put her as good. I've found that Mercy in this game is much worse than Overwatch 1. Overwatch 1 Mercy was Super Saiyan tier, but right now I want to put Mercy as bad, but just because I've been used to her so much, I'm going to put her as good. So not much has changed with her. She can maneuver around a little bit due to the fact that she's been able to utilize her angelic jump a little bit. But other than that, she doesn't have too many changes, and just based on the way this is very not crowd control, and she benefited from crowd controlling healing people so that way she can get her ult, it's unfortunate now. So she's really taking a dive. Otherwise, I would have put her as Super Saiyan tier if it was Overwatch 1, but in this game, she doesn't benefit as much. And this brings me to my next point. The healer that I used to main as, Moira, is now bad. So Moira used to be, in my opinion, one of the better healers. Her, Mercy, and Lucio were the best ones in Overwatch 1 in my opinion. Yes, you could throw Zen in there, but I just feel like based on the way Overwatch 1 played, I think that you could potentially swap Zen in there, but Mercy, Moira, Lucio for me were the best ones. So she is pretty much useless in this game. Her healing feels completely different. She feels like she can't even do that much DPS anymore. And overall, I just wish they would change her to be better. But she does not benefit from the new format when it comes to Overwatch 2. Little low cat Bastion, I will put as good. So Bastion overall, is just very high when it comes to DPS. He can now do artillery mode when it comes to his ult, which is just like, I believe, 3 shots. He now has configuration tank, which is slightly mobile, where it can move for a little bit, which in my opinion is pretty OP depending on the situation. Unlimited ammo for, I believe, 6 or 7 seconds. And I believe his regular base form, instead of having 35 bullets, it now has 25, and he no longer has self-heal, so that was a debuff. But overall, I just think he is good. I do not think he is great. He's pretty easily taken out by someone like Hanzo or Genji from a long distance, so he's not amazing. Torb, I'll put as good. I would put as great, but I will put him as good. I think that Torb overall, the fact that he can use a turret as like a mini 6th ally, has always been good. Molten Core is definitely useful if you're in a certain area. Like if you actually throw that around the robot, the fact that people can't get around the robot is going to be really, really good. Same thing for the payload, only for a brief period of time for as long as it lasts. I think he is good overall. I believe his damage output might have been slightly increased, or the surface area based on his secondary and primary fire was lessened, so that way it can damage people a little bit easier. So overall, I think Torb is good. Junker Queen, I believe, has been played a lot. I don't think she's great. I think she's good. I think that she can do a lot of damage. The fact that her ult disables people from being healed the same way as Ana, I believe only those two can de-heal people. That is very useful. If people are affected with wound damage, it does heal her over time, so that it is very, very good. So overall, I think that she is good. I do not think she's one of the better tanks. I think she's okay. She does do a decent amount of damage, but she can easily be taken out if you know how to play your characters pretty well. Echo, I'll put as good. I think one of the worst things that happen with Echo is that when she does copy someone, it only limits her to now 300 health. So there's really no reason to copy a tank anymore, which is unfortunate, because if you want to use that as a kind of like a shield, for example, if you copied Roadhog and then decided to purposefully get hit with like bullets and then heal yourself using Roadhog's ability, that would skyrocket your ult energy, so that way you can ult right away, use it, and then potentially help your team. But now that you can only have a copied Roadhog with 300 health is very unfortunate. She is very versatile. She can get in and out of situations, so she is one of the better DPS when it comes to that. But overall, I think she just is good. Diva, I will put as great. She'll probably be the last great one here, given the fact that now her defense matrix, I believe, lasts 1 more second. She can now melee while she is rushing people, which is always good. She does decent damage overall. Her ult's obviously really good, and it can be used in certain situations. It could be pushed forward, so that's very good. So overall, I think Diva is a great tank. I do not think she is better than Winston or Sigma, but she is a pretty great character. And then last but not least, we have Sojourn. From what I've noticed, I think Sojourn's just good. I don't think she's great. I don't think she's amazing. I've noticed that she can do really good when it comes to her ult. It can take some time to build up her charged ability, but then when you actually do charge it, you need to have good precision, or else, if you're not as good as a Widowmaker when it comes to sniping, it's going to be pretty useless. Unless you're just trying to get for body shots and then headshots, you'll be completely fine. I think overall she's good. I prefer Soldier to her 100%. She is very versatile because she can slide jump, which is very good. So it's like a fusion of Soldier sprinting and then BAP jumping. So overall, I think she is good. But this is my tier list. This is all the characters and what I think are actually really, really good, or in this case, bad. Let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know if you've been able to queue into Overwatch. If you like the current Overwatch right now, I definitely have opinions on it. I think that it has changed significantly, some for good, some for bad, but we'll see what happens and how the developers actually go about it. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.